this area here, you'll see your name, and the little gear icon is where you want to click on and go in for kind of any of your account level stuff, right? So the reason I'm drawing attention to this, you of course have your personal details, your billing details. We also have some information on the affiliate program, which if you guys are not a part of, I can definitely share more on that as well. But as it relates to the account level content, we have your personas saved here. So for those of you who are either newer to Capsho or haven't explored this feature of Capsho just yet, at the account level, we actually, when you do your first upload, we do ask you to set up a persona. And what we mean by that is the persona encompasses two things. Firstly, who you are in a bit more detail and who you serve, your audience, and what they kind of follow you for. And then the second thing, which is really important as it relates to the content Capsho creates for you, is the tone of voice. So when you first set up your Capsho account, you'll be asked to populate these two things. The tone of voice kind of learner is just meant to be a starting point where you can train Capsho on content that you have written so that it kind of has a good starting point. But you don't have to pressure yourself to be like, oh, I've got to give you 10 pieces that are perfectly in my tone of voice, because over time, it's actually going to learn from every edit that you make on the platform. And you tell the platform that, hey, this is an edit that I want you to learn from. Okay. So for those of you who have set up your persona, you can always go back to my personas and actually edit them as well. If you're like, well, I used to talk to content creators, but I still do sort of, but now I speak more to, I don't know, mums who work from home or something like that, then you can go ahead and change that as well right in here. You don't have to set up a brand new persona unless you think it is a completely new space that you're going to be playing in. In that case, you can set up a new persona as well. Then in terms of the actual features and the feature breakdowns, we've broken them up into 3 studios. Almost these are different rooms of Capsho that I want to go into. But let's start with Marketing Studio. The main purpose of Marketing Studio is to take an audio or video piece of content and repurpose it, turn it into all of the written marketing assets that you need. To start off this process, you will need to go ahead and upload a file. You have 2 options to do that. You can go ahead and, drag and drop a file, or obviously find it in your local storage. You can also now add, for those of you who haven't seen this new-ish feature, you can actually add your YouTube link directly. So this is for if you have already live streamed, to YouTube, or you have a back catalog, of content that is already on YouTube, rather than having to download it and re-upload it into Capsho. You can go ahead and just add the link directly in there. Okay, so that is a pretty simple process. Basically, once you do that, it's going to, I've just dragged and dropped a mock file in there. You can add a name to your file. So it will default to the file name that you have on your either if it's on YouTube or, on your computer, but you can go ahead and rename this. If you can't make up your mind just yet, you can also rename the file later. You just go ahead and upload, and then it will do its thing. So when you hit upload there, it's going to basically ask you, firstly, what kind of content you're uploading as it relates to the platform. So another key feature here means that you can actually upload content where you've been maybe a guest on somebody else's platform. So this could be for those of you who are speakers, you might have been on stage and you have a recording. That's a really, usually, for those of you who have like a signature talk, that's a really great thing to put through Capsho to generate evergreen content. You may have done a really, I don't know, exceptional podcast interview that you were like, oh, that was actually pretty good. I loved what I said there. And usually, your hosts are pretty happy to share the recording with you. But so those are some of the examples of content you might have been on somebody else's stage. And then you also have obviously content for your own stage and your own channel, which is, likely going to be the bulk of it. Now, this is where the persona piece that I was talking about comes into it. So as you can see here, you can create multiple personas. I've just created examples for myself, my co-founder, Deidre, our strategic partner, Jenna. But you can either just pick one of the personas you have. You will have to pick one for every upload, or you can go ahead and create a new one. And if you haven't created a persona before, the only option you will have is to create one. So you'll go ahead and give it a nickname, give it something that you are definitely going to remember. Especially if you kind of create one and you're like, oh, there was a time I think we had like a multiple Deidre Shens in here, and the team and I had to work out which is the right Deidre Shen. So, just make sure that if you are experimenting with this a little bit, that you give it a nickname that makes sense to you. Okay, so, and then this is somewhat important because this is quite important because, some of you know exactly what this is for you, right? But if you are struggling a little bit, we do have a persona statement creator that you can go ahead and just click here. It's a little bit hard to see, but you can actually, if you have a bio, but you don't really know how to turn it into the inputs for this, you can go ahead and click there, add your little bio, and then it will turn it into the format you need. So the reason this is important is we don't want kind of superfluous language, sometimes that we may use to talk about the value we add to our audiences. We need it to be like to the point so that Capsho knows in as much detail, but not, kind of fluffy speak, what you do, who you serve, and what result that they might be looking for from you. And the second part of the persona builder is to actually go ahead and start to train Capsho in your tone of voice. There is a generic option. I would highly advise you you should probably just remove that. But if you are, crunched for time, you can definitely choose one of the four that we have: motivational, conversational, caring, and professional. But I just want to warn you, this is AI service. If you go down this path, it is going to have a very AI lens to it. And I don't want to hear it if you are later going, oh, it sounds very much like AI, and you use generic tone of voice, right? So this is where you have the opportunity to start to train Capsho in your tone of voice. Now, a very important point here is it's not about the content. Now, it doesn't mean that you can write rubbish in here. That doesn't make logical sense. But really what it's looking for here is kind of your tonality, how you like to structure things, and just your natural cadence when it comes to talking. Some of you might be more formal, some of you might be more casual. You might have certain ways of kind of opening, your pieces of content. You might like lots of spaces with short sentences, or you might prefer a denser, So these are the things that Capsho is going to be looking for. So you will see there's a 3,000 character limit. We have found shorter form content works better because it's more potent. So the rule of thumb here is to pick 5 to 10 pieces of content that you really feel reading it crystallizes how you like to speak. Okay. Now, there's no pressure, like I said, to make this perfect, because like everything, we grow, even our tone of voice grows and changes. So over time, Capsho will continue to learn. This is not the be all and end all, but this gives it a really good starting point, especially for your first upload. So all you have to do is have those things ready. We recommend, like I said, social media and emails as the best place to mine. So what it's going to do now, your persona is going to overlay how you like to speak, and then it's going to overlay who you are, or at least how you define yourself to your audience, who your audience is, what they're looking for, and what you do, right? So it's quite a beautiful mix of things that's ultimately going to factor into everything, every piece of content that Capsho writes for you. And then you can also tell Capsho if especially if it's because it is content that it's on your platform. A lot of you have recordings where you have an expert guest, so you can definitely put them in there as well. And then Capsho will take on that context too. And if you have the start of the show, you just want to, exclude because it's got maybe high level show intros or an ad and things like that you don't want to factor in, you can also tell Capsho what to click. And then it will go into this uploads processing status here. You'll be able to tell from obviously the nickname you gave it, where, what it is. So once that's ready, you want to go ahead and click on that, or you can click on the get started. And now this is the second step for every upload. Now, people say to us, well, isn't AI meant to be easy and save me time and all of that? Yes, but we also believe in it being intentional and creating content that you're actually going to use versus you just put it through the sausage machine and a sausage you did not want comes out, right? So basically, once it does all of that, it's transcribed it, it's got the content, it's understanding your persona. But before it writes anything, it wants a few things. It's going to ask you the topic for this upload. So we will do most of the work to kind of come up with the topics that we could surmise from what you've uploaded. But we're going to ask you to pick it because you could also, sort of customize it, right? Now, this is going to give Capsho some focus on what you wanted to really kind of talk about. Okay, so in the written content. So the first thing to do is pick your topic for the upload. The second thing we're going to do is based on that topic, it's going to say, that's interesting. Now, based on that topic, based on your audience, based on all of this persona stuff that you've told us already, we're going to now write your social media content. And we need two things to make the social media content really powerful. We're going to come up with 5 premises that we want you to choose. And premises are a little bit more than just a topic, right? They're a point of view that we can again, we've analyzed what you've said in your recording. Here are the very specific perspectives that you have that is coming through, and we want you to pick at for every upload. That is going to be the focus of the social media content. Not so much the blog, not so much this long form content, but the social media content, because a lot of social media content that AI generates is very general, and it's very like, oh, this is what I spoke about. It's like summarized versus actually reminding you of the very specific perspectives you had, and then giving you something that you're like, oh, okay, this is actually valuable and cuts through the noise versus just me adding to the noise out there. Okay. So basically you want to go ahead and pick that. And then the third thing is and we do not apologize for making you do this work, because this is the thing that's going to get you results, or at least get you thinking about your funnel and what you even want from your content, is we're going to add a call to action. So it may be very simple for you to say, yep, I just have one call to action with all of my content. Amazing. You're doing great, because that means you probably optimize your business to a point where it's all really simple, right? If this is causing some anxiety and causing some questions, I encourage you to lean into that as, well, why are you even creating this content in the first place then? What do you want out of this? Now, this is going to be taken into account in your social media posts as well. Once you do that, it will move into this next status here, which is called ready to edit. Now, this means all of your Capsho assets have been generated for you. It will remind you of the topic, whether it was your own content or you're on someone else's platform, the persona you've applied, and obviously if you have any guests. Now, this is the view that you will see of your marketing studio. This is your asset dashboard, and these are all of the assets that Capsho creates for you. So remember, these are all the written assets that Capsho creates for you. We've got social media up the top. We've got Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You'll see that each of the social media sections, content, as it relates to social media, has 4 posts, and they're labeled accordingly. Post 1 of 4, post 2 of 4, post 3 of 4, post 4 of 4. So they are intended to go in that order, because this is the 4-post strategy that takes your audience from awareness, as the first post is named, to action, right? It kind of takes them on the journey. Now, does this mean that you can't go straight to action? Of course not, right? This is, if you're just like, hey, I just need the action post and I'm just posting on social media once this week, awesome. This is just there to guide you if you would like some guidance on this stuff and give you a variety of content. We don't want to be one of those platforms that just says, blah, here's some AI stuff, pick and choose it, and it's very general, and it looks like anyone could have written it, right? Well, everything is editable inside of Capsho, and then once you make the edits, you can go ahead and mark as complete, and that's where Capsho will start to learn. So it's going to start learning at the asset level over time. Obviously, it'll take a little bit of time. We recommend 3 to 4 uploads for it to really start to get to know you. And if you have a very different way of writing, obviously there's going to be more to learn. So, obviously think of it as a junior intern on your team, how long, time that they would take to obviously learn, right? So that's how you can, continue to make sure that it continues to reflect your tone of voice. And then the one difference with LinkedIn is that we also do create a LinkedIn newsletter article. That's a native, functionality of LinkedIn. For those of you who don't know, you can set up your own newsletter on LinkedIn, and we do create a LinkedIn article for you that you can publish depending on the cadence of your newsletter. Now, even if you don't have a LinkedIn newsletter, take a peek. If it's, if you are emailing, for example, your list on a regular basis, with, sort of just value add content that's just about your expertise, this is a really great starting point. And then we have the podcast and the YouTube ones, which are more for helping you publish. We have titles everywhere that you see a title in this bold, in this bold, you'll see that there's options. So we'll populate one for you, the one that we recommend. But there's also others that Capsho has created for you. And of course, these are all editable as well, right? So you can go ahead and do that. All of this is editable. You'll see the podcast style and description is very simple. It's got a title, it's got a bit of a hook. It'll tell the audience what they can expect. And then with a bit of a CTA, you can click on this little plus, and it will also give you access to the transcript, the key moments, which are the high level timestamps, and chapter summaries, which are more detailed. And then you have the YouTube version, but obviously it has a little bit more. It's got the key moments, which will be pre-populated, and it'll also give you tags, suggested tags that you want to publish with the video as well. If you're more of a video or audio first creator and writing is not really the thing that you want to be spending a ton of time on, this blog post is a really great way to make sure you're not missing out on the SEO, potential of your content. Because, the great thing is if you are in the likes of YouTube, Google, same people. So, essentially this will just boost visibility and discoverability for you. It will be, geared towards people maybe who are more looking for written answers to their questions. So this will be based on your upload, but be written in a way that you necessarily don't even have to listen to or watch what you've uploaded, because this is kind of taking all of that and turning it into a written piece of content, right? We also give you the meta description for the blog post so that when you do publish it, you have that. And we also give you some key points that if you have the capacity to do so, you turn into an infographic. And a lot of people also use the blog, between the blog post and the LinkedIn newsletter article, they also use that for email content. If that's where you're finding more of your engagement, or you already have warm leads, you kind of want to keep them engaged. This is another way that you could just give, if that's where you're finding more, more resonance as well. So don't be limited to what platforms we've put on here. Just kind of take your time, review them, and have a think about how they might apply to your existing workflow. Before I go into lead gen, I'm going to quickly show you quotes. This has been this is one of our favorite features from Capshovians. All it's going to do is going to go ahead and pick the most potent quotes from the upload. Obviously, if it's a solo episode, it's going to be all yours. If it's a guest, it will likely be mostly the guest, but I'm sure you'll have also said some very insightful things. So again, there's lots of ways to use this. Some people use this as ways to create like quote cards for their guests. Some people use this as ideas for, future content. Some people go, oh, that was really good. That's a really good hook for a subject line, right? So there's a myriad of ways that you can use this. It's also sometimes just a good reminder of what the episode was about and what the highlights were. So that's a great little feature. Now, I want to spend a couple of minutes on the lead gen side of things. We actually create a checklist for you. So it says lead magnet. You don't have to create it as a lead magnet, but you can, especially if it's a very powerful recording. And we talked earlier about uploading maybe your signature talk or your signature thing, right? Framework maybe, or whatever it is. This is really helpful in a few different ways. So you can turn it into, if your audience loves checklists and things like that, this is a great little tool to use to turn into a checklist. A lot of people use this as awesome. I did a podcast episode kind of high level on this, but this is going to be the outline for detailed training that I do. And it could be more than one piece of training, as you can see, right? So use it for any which way that you want, but it's a really, really great organizer of the upload that you've put in. Now, if your upload is a little random and rambly, that will obviously be reflected on this as well. But again, a bit of structure never hurt anybody, right? So it's actually really, really helpful in that regard. Alongside the checklist, it will also give you these 3 Facebook posts, which are very optional, but it's one of the strategies that we have seen work well on Facebook. People have tried using it on other platforms and converting it to that so feel free to do that. But essentially, it's 3 posts that are designed to be posted one after the other that basically uses a lead magnet as a hook to get people to self-identify as leads. The thing that I want to show you next is the image studio. You'll see that when you click into image studio, your currency up here will change to image credits. And basically, it will every time you generate an image, you use a credit. And we currently have 2 tools at the moment. So we have the ability for you to create a YouTube thumbnail and the ability for you to create a social media image. What we don't have yet, and I say yet because hopefully this will come soon, is the ability for you to add your photo to integrate into these. So right now, this is going to be very much other people or no people. What I found is the biggest thing is this, you have to you want to leave the sort of more like the creative part of it to AI. You do have to have an idea of what you want. So really any vision you have for the image, and then you basically, if there are any visual elements you definitely want to include, you want to be specific. For social media, you can choose the aspect ratio and you can also pick the style. And as you can see here, it will, once you put through, it will generate it for you here. You can just filter by YouTube or social media. I don't know, my internet connection is just a little bit slow here. And then it will, when you click into it, you can download it and you can also be reminded of what prompt you put into it to get it. The YouTube thumbnail design is an interesting one. For those of you who do A/B test on YouTube, you could always A/B test this version with one that you've created. You can always go back to older videos and create one through here and see what happens. Like I said, this takes a bit of getting used to because you're kind of telling the thumbnail visual rather than sort of explaining everything. And you also want to exclude any of the words that you might want on the thumbnail itself. Now that is the thumbnail, the written text on images is pretty nascent, right? So it's not always going to get it. I think we have about maybe a 60% hit rate, which is not bad, but it's not great. So you will see, it's going to struggle with bigger words. It's going to struggle with more words. So we recommend putting it at 3 to 5 max. So this is just meant to be a space for you to play. People have also used the social media image designer for other images. So, at this point, it's just kind of like use it as an experiment and see what happens. All right. And then we have Clipping Studio. This has also been a highly requested feature. Basically, when you go to create new clips, you can either choose an existing video file. Obviously, it doesn't do audio only files, or you can add a file to YouTube. So you can choose one you've already uploaded, or you can add a new one in here. And then the great thing is you can actually tell Capsho once you have, if I choose this one, for example, you can actually tell Capsho what kind of clips you would want from it. So instead of it going ahead and just finding them, yeah, you can just go ahead and say, okay, these are the kind of clips that you would want. And if there is a topic that you want it to focus on, you can tell it that as well. And once you do that, it's going to go ahead and create these clips. Be warned, there's not a lot of editing ability, actually none on this. We just pull the clips for you, which you can download directly. They're in 916 only. We give you some hooks and headlines that you can use as further marketing, for your content. We also give you a social media post to download. But a great way that people use this is to say, if they do spend a bit more time editing their clips, they use this as the clip finder to say, yes, this was a really good piece of that particular episode. But again, we're really helping people sort of spend less time in production and more time on actual marketing. So these are pretty good to post as is as well on stories and, kind of more like your short form content. So this is where Clipping Studio is probably going to stay for a little bit. But, we always look for your feedback on all of these things. So again, Clipping Studio, you'll see when you head in there, you'll see clipping runs. You get 14 every month. Each run will give you 5 to 6 clips. So again, if you don't use them, you do lose them. So you may as well just experiment with it to see what you get.